Healthy Scratches continue here on Team 1200. Steve Lloyd, Jason York with you. Lots to get to on the show today. Lots of opportunity for you to scoop up some great stuff. Head to our website, team1200.com. Sign up for our 9 and Dines. The first one happens at the Canadian coming up on May 25th. And your last chance is tomorrow, actually, to head to the website and get your name in. And you could have a chance for you and two of your buddies to come out and play 9 holes with a Team 1200 personality, and also have dinner and some drinks afterwards. Lots of fun. We're going to do these all summer long. First one's coming up at the Canadian, so head to the website, team1200.com. Also go there to participate in our poll question brought to you by Capital Homes Realty. We want to know who you think the Conn Smythe favorite is to this point, and we've ruled out Yaroslav Halak because we know if we put him on there, it'd just be 90% and everybody else, trying to make it interesting. Also, passes for Equinel up for grabs yet again today, each and every day this week and next. It's a text contest, 50 cents a text. That charge does apply. Text the word golf to 54321. Also give us your name. That's golf at 54321, and we'll make a draw at the end of the show. On top of that, we got our prizes for caller or emailer of the day. So we'll get to your emails, more of your calls later on in the show as well. But right now, pleased to welcome to the program lawyer for Gowlings here in town, Eric Macramella joins us. Eric, good afternoon. How are you?
How are you, Steve?
Well, thanks for coming on today, Eric. Just wanted to get your take on a couple of legal issues that have cropped up this week. And let's begin with a real on-ice one, and then we'll get into the changes to the pardon system that could be coming in light of the Graham James pardon. But let's begin with Patrice Cormier. And we've seen this, Eric, over the years with different players, different levels of hockey, where the law reaches out onto the playing surface, onto the ice surface, and that's happening again in Rouen-Noranda as Patrice Cormier has been charged with assault. Can you just take us through the process here, and what are the hurdles that face the legal system, prosecutors, when they go onto the playing surface of any sport?
Steve, it's a pretty sort of a pretty sordid issue, and oftentimes leagues and associations don't want the courts to sort of intrude on their playing field. But in cases where you're dealing with potential crime, the courts feel they have no choice to step in. So, in the case of hockey, if you want to establish that the crime of assault has taken place, you have to show two things. First thing you have to show is that there was an intention to inflict some kind of harm. Second thing you have to show is that the victim didn't consent to that harm. The thing is, though, is that when you play hockey, when your skate touches the ice, you are in some way consenting to some form of bodily contact or harm and to the risk that would flow from that. And what would normally constitute a crime in regular society wouldn't constitute a crime on a hockey rink, because hockey is an aggressive, physical sport, and physical contact and bodily harm is part of that sport, and you consent to it as a hockey player. The thing, though, is that when when the play is so clearly aggressive and so clearly violent, it's possible then that a crime has been committed on the ice. And this kind of ties back into this issue of consent when you're trying to establish assault. Basically, the court would say, look, this harm that occurred on the ice was so aggressive and so heinous that you can't say a player would have consented to that. So, in the issue of Patrice Cormier's hit on Michael Tam, the Crown has pressed charges, and they would take the position that elbow to the head was so excessively violent and outside the norm of what is seen as acceptable in hockey from a contact standpoint, that elbow to the head constitutes a crime.
Well, Eric, I would just say, Eric, just off the top of my head, when I think of other incidents, and we've mentioned them earlier in the week, way back when Cicerelli got Luke Richardson across the top of the head with his stick, and he ended up spending a night in jail for that. Marty McSorley, when he slashed Donald Brashear basically upside the head, deflected off his shoulder, but hit him in the head, and was in trouble for that. And, of course, we know the Bertuzzi incident, which is the big one in recent years that has kind of changed the way we look at things during hockey games, at least. But this incident is, I think, different than the others because, as you put it, you talk about the level of consent and what essentially, I'm not downplaying it, but what essentially it is, it's an elbow. We see elbows in hockey games all the time. But this one just because he came off the bench and tracked the player with the elbow. I'm sure that's where the courts are going to have to really, really define this, because it's, when you just look at it in a vacuum, it's not as egregious as those other acts that I just explained.
Yeah, Steve, I agree with you in that. You know, you look at the Bertuzzi-Moore case, or McSorley-Brashear, Cicerelli Richardson, or even Alexander Paris-Hogan when he went after Garrett Stafford with a two-hander to the head.
Yeah, and Stafford missed with his swing before.
Right, Stafford missed with his swing. You know, in those cases, those were a lot sort of more egregious and obvious. You know, in this case here with Cormier, you know, is that hit, is it closer to you know, Cook on Savard, or is it closer to Richards on Booth? You know, where does it fall along that spectrum? Mm-hmm. So when you watch that video, it sort of falls somewhere in the middle. And I agree, you know, we don't want to downplay that hit, but it doesn't seem sort of as egregious as the other situations.
Eric, do you think this is a dangerous can of worms to open, though? Because once you go down this road, when something happens again, like, I just don't know where the line is, and who draws that line of what is acceptable and what isn't.
You know, that's such a great question, and you know, some of it comes down to public policy. You know, after that hit on Mr. Tam, there was a lot of public outcry. I mean, you know, the image of him unconscious on the ice and convulsions and the resulting head trauma was not something that, you know, people seem to be okay with. So a lot of that has to do with the pressure the public puts on the Crown. And, you know, in this case here, the Crown, after, you know, doing their due diligence, decided to press charges. And you have to sort of wonder how much of that was the result of public pressure, because, again, this hit kind of falls somewhere in the middle. It's kind of tricky.